Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, so get ready, because this time, well, it's not really about finding consensus.
No, not at all.
We're digging into a specific viewpoint on relationships, particularly for men selecting a partner, but seen through a really stark Machiavellian lens.
That's a good way to put it, stark. We're drawing from 2 YouTube video transcripts, and they don't pull any punches. They lay out some very strong, almost kind of ruthless claims about making this huge life decision.
Right. And our mission here is pretty straightforward. We want to unpack the main arguments, the warnings, the sort of unconventional advice these sources offer.
Yeah, basically pull out the core ideas they're presenting, help you understand their perspective, even if, some of it feels challenging or maybe even a bit uncomfortable.
Definitely. So let's start at the foundation. What's the core idea here?
Well, they kick off with what they call an unspoken law. The claim is history doesn't really care about the man who chooses the wrong woman.
Holds no pity is the phrase they use.
Exactly. And they say this choice directly leads to, well, the collapse of his potential, the destruction of his kingdom, as they put it.
And they're really insistent this isn't just like bad luck or fate.
No, not at all. They argue it's the direct, predictable result of letting the wrong person into your inner circle, your life, something they claim Machiavelli really understood about strategy and human interaction.
Okay, so strategy. And within that, they present this very binary view of women.
Very binary. The sources basically say there are only 2 types: beneficial, meaning an asset, or destructive, a liability. That's it.
No shades of gray.
None, according to this perspective. It's one or the other.
And then they hit you with this idea of a cruel reality.
Yeah. The claim is that many women have, let's say, perfected the art of seeming beneficial while actually being, and this is their term, parasites in disguise.
Wow.
And the warning is blunt. Choose wrong, let that parasite in, and eventually your life just burns down. It's all framed as strategy, not emotion.
And they bring in Machiavelli again here.
They do. Quote, "He who seeks to deceive will always find someone who will allow himself to be deceived."
And the sources say that person, the one easily deceived,
is the weak man. The man who, they argue, lets feelings and desires run the show instead of disciplined thinking and observation.
Okay, so let's get into the specifics. The commandments, as they call them. Number 1 seems pretty fundamental.
Yeah, foundational. Never ever choose just based on looks. Appearance alone is a trap.
Because
They argue beauty means nothing if her mind is empty, her values are rotten, or her loyalty is, well, for sale.
they have a term for that kind of woman, right?
Polished poison. That's the phrase.
That paints a picture. And there's another Machiavelli quote attached to this.
Yep. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. The message is clear. The strategic man has to look much, much deeper.
So how do you do that? What should you be looking for?
They stress observing her patterns. Consistent behavior, choices, real loyalties, how she feels about discipline. It means watching how she acts when she thinks no one's looking.
Right, like how she speaks about people behind their backs.
Exactly. Or how she treats service staff, her family, even how she treats herself. They claim that ignoring these, small signals is a huge reason why men end up losing everything.
So finding a beneficial woman isn't just luck of the draw in this view.
Definitely not. She is selected. That's the word they use. And that involves, actively testing and observing her. They compare it to a general studying the terrain before a battle.
Makes sense in that framework.
Yeah.
And there's an urgency to it.
Yeah. They use another Machiavellian idea. The wise man does at once what the fool does finally. Don't wait, don't delay until you're already trapped, as they put it.
Okay, commandment 2. This one seems central to their whole Machiavellian framing.
It really is. Never select a woman who does not respect masculine authority.
What does that look like, according to them? What are the signs?
Indicators they mention include things like, does she see a man's strength as a threat? Does she seem to compete with his leadership instead of, complementing it?
Or challenge his vision without adding any value.
Right, without offering wisdom or actually trying to align. They claim that a woman who lacks this respect for what they call masculine order will just turn a man's life into feminine chaos.
And that's how kings fall.
That's their assertion, how legacies die. Because building anything significant, they argue, needs alignment, not constant friction and opposition.
They connect this to Machiavelli's ideas about power, too.
Directly, citing his warnings that rulers who don't secure their power end up as slaves. They argue that love on its own won't fix fundamental disrespect or drama. Once she's chosen, she kind of understands the power dynamic. She holds leverage he's essentially given her.
So power isn't something you negotiate with terms like compromise or partnership in this view.
No, it's framed very differently. It's something you either possess and maintain or you forfeit. Full stop.
Wow. And the Machiavelli quote here is pretty famous.
It is much safer to be feared than loved if you have to choose between the two.
Applied to relationships, that means.
They claim love without respect is just slavery with a smile. And a man who gives up his leadership just to keep the peace, he's a puppet king.
Is there a practical test they suggest for this?
Yeah, they say watch how she reacts when you set a boundary. Say no to something. Maybe limit access to your time, your money, your attention.
Does she respect it? Or does she try to manipulate her way around it?
Exactly, that's the test. They also claim that many women today are sort of trained by a weak society to expect men to cater to their emotions constantly.
And men often just go along with it for peace.
That's the argument. They even use the example of buying drinks for women you just met, suggesting it reveals her real motivation, whether she feels entitled.
This is where they bring in criticisms of modern feminism, right?
Yeah, they argue that, according to them, feminism has tried to convince men they're the problem. But this perspective flips it. It says the man is the gatekeeper of the relationship, of marriage, and he should be setting the terms.
It's their counter-narrative.
Right. They use that analogy. The man is an island, a kingdom. The woman is a boat wanting to dock. The island sets the rules for entry.
Okay, let's move to the third commandment. This one's about boredom.
Yeah, watch how she handles boredom. It sounds simple, but they argue it's incredibly revealing.
Revealing of what?
Her true character, basically. When she's not being entertained, showered with gifts, or getting constant attention, what happens?
Does she create her own value, find peace in the quiet? Or does she stir up drama?
Exactly. Does she seek chaos, start petty arguments just to feel significant? Their prediction is if she can't handle boredom, she'll absolutely destroy your peace when real-life challenges hit. The goal is peace, not a ticking time bomb.
Right. Okay, number 4. This one is definitely controversial.
It is. They tackle a woman's past relationship history, specifically using the term high body count, and they claim it matters. A lot.
They push back hard against the idea that the past doesn't matter, or that caring about it makes a man insecure.
Completely. They claim Machiavelli would strongly disagree. They quote him, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." Meaning her past actions, her patterns are more real than any promises she makes now. Their central claim here, and it's provocative, is that history is the only reliable predictor of loyalty.
So if she's betrayed others?
She's not starting fresh with you, they say. She's just sharpening her knives. Her past is screaming your future. That's the kind of language they use.
Wow. They mention research, too.
They allude to research linking higher partner counts with more divorces and claim that, in their view, modern feminism tries to rewrite or dismiss this. Again, just reporting their claim.
And they make a distinction between men and women here.
They do. They acknowledge some men might be promiscuous, but argue a masculine man, by their definition, doesn't want a partner who's been dominated by other men. And then they use that very blunt phrase.
You can't turn a hoe into a housewife.
Yeah. It's harsh, but it's central to their argument on this point.
Okay, commandment 5. This shifts to values.
Right. Never invest in a woman whose values you do not share, fundamentally.
The idea being a man needs his own mission first.
Yeah, absolutely. He needs a vision, a purpose, and the woman he selects should align with that mission. The choice shouldn't be driven by lust or just attraction.
What are signs of misalignment, they point out?
Things like, does she mock his discipline, roll her eyes at his ambition, seem to care more about, say, social media than building a real legacy?
And her looks or charm don't matter if the values aren't there.
Irrelevant, according to this view. If the core values don't sync, none of that surface stuff matters. They state it very forcefully. The wrong woman will cost you your destiny.
No amount of pleasure is worth the graveyard of your potential.
That's the quote. They even bring up a public figure as an example of where they think lust got caught up and led to ruin.
Okay, so those are some key warnings. Then the focus shifts a bit, doesn't it, towards the man's own role?
It does. It emphasizes him building his own value, commanding respect. And this leads to what they call the coldest law, or maybe the final law.
Which is?
If she does not fear losing you, she will never truly value you.
Based on the idea that what costs nothing is worth nothing.
Precisely. They bring in Machiavelli's point about people needing to be caressed or crushed. The argument is, if she doesn't feel any risk of losing you, she'll eventually, maybe unintentionally crush you or take you for granted.
But if she does fear losing you,
Then she'll rise to meet you. She'll value the relationship more. Men who are feared in this sense, meaning their absence would be a significant loss, are respected.
but the advice is practical. Stop being too available.
Yeah, stop being overly available, stop rewarding bad behavior, stop begging for loyalty. You command it, they say, through your own standards and actions.
The man willing to walk away holds the power.
That's the core of it in this framework. But they admit it's hard. It requires a man to, quote, kill the fool inside.
The romantic part.
Yeah, the romantic, maybe desperate part that things love conquers all, that it can change a woman's fundamental nature. They see many men as being broken by their own illusions about women.
Back to Machiavelli on love versus fear.
Right. Fear holds more power, is more reliable, and the woman you can't walk away from. She owns you, they claim.
They contrast how women supposedly treat men differently based on this.
Sharply. A man she fears losing. They say her tone softens, her loyalty sharpens. The man who's always available, always chasing, she becomes colder, bolder, tests him more.
And they attribute this to female nature.
Yes, they claim it's female nature not trusting what it doesn't respect. If a man doesn't protect his own value, why would she follow him?
And the most dangerous woman.
Is the one who sees him just as an emotional provider. An emotional trash can is the really harsh term they use. Not a leader, not a partner in purpose.
How do you test for that?
Does she actually follow your guidance? Does she submit to leadership when it's appropriate? Does she strive to meet your standard? If not, they say you're just an outlet for her.
Okay, this is heavy stuff. But they also suggest that the pain from bad choices can be useful.
Yeah, a catalyst for growth, for self-development. They pose the question to the man, what is your product? Meaning, what's your actual value?
Like how you handle pressure, your fitness, your network, your ethics.
All of it. Building yourself into an unstoppable force, as they put it, because if you do walk away, you know with certainty she's the one losing out, not you.
And respect isn't negotiated.
Not negotiated, not earned by bending or shrinking. It's commanded. They quote Machiavelli again about deceivers finding willing victims, applying it to men deceiving themselves.
So how do you command it?
By living as if you're willing to lose her any second, she will test you, they warn, to see if it's just talk, all bark and no bite.
And you must bite.
You must walk away, cut off access, disappear for a bit. Not to be cruel, but to show your self-value is higher than your fear of her absence.
Okay, there's another observation point. They bring up her relationships with other men.
Right. This is crucial, they say. Look at how she talks about men generally. Her father, brothers, exes, male friends.
Does she admire masculine strength or does she mock it?
Exactly. Is there bitterness there, resentment, sarcasm towards men who've led before? They claim a woman who secretly despises men can't truly align.
That bitterness will eventually come out.
It will, they argue. You end up marrying a competitor, not a companion.
And back to the idea of patterns over promises.
Absolutely. They hammer this point. Invest in her patterns, her history, not her potential or what she says she'll do. If her life was chaos or lazy before you, it's unlikely to magically change.
You are not the exception.
Bluntly, yes. Men ignore this, they claim, because they think their love or patience will change her. But you're not her father, not her therapist, not God. Trying to reform her is stealing from your own future.
The wise man does at once what the fool does finally. Delaying the cut is being the fool.
That's the message. And this leads to another really core assertion about purpose.
That no woman is your purpose.
Correct. A man's purpose, in this view, is his mission, his discipline, his kingdom. The woman is either an asset or a liability to that purpose.
But men often get it backward.
They claim men often flip this equation, making the woman the center of their purpose. And when that happens, she loses respect. Why?
Because women don't respect men who orbit them.
That's their argument. They respect men who orbit their own vision.
Okay, and the brutal lesson about absence.
Choose a woman who can thrive without you. Watch her when you're not around. Does she fall apart, descend into chaos, or does she maintain discipline, hold the line?
A woman needing constant validation is your death.
Yes, she'll drain you. But one who multiplies, in your absence, respects the mission, holds herself accountable. That's the keeper, according to them.
And applying better feared than loved means being willing to make her uncomfortable.
Yes, with your standards. Call out boundary violations immediately. Withdraw time, attention. Be ready to show her the door if she tests your core values. Bend once.
You bend forever. She learned she could push.
Precisely. So select a woman whose presence actually strengthens your discipline, one who encourages laziness or distracts you from your goals. That's setting you up for failure. That's treason.
A beneficial woman is an ally. She sharpens you.
Challenges you, holds you accountable. That's the ideal they present.
What about the guy already in the wrong relationship, according to this?
They say it's not too late, but getting out will cost pride, time, maybe money. But staying, that's far more expensive. A slow death.
Because the wrong woman drains you.
Drains everything, energy, ambition, spirit, and they add, nature has no sympathy for the man who refuses to lead himself out of that situation.
Back to the fear of loss.
People respect what they fear losing. If she doesn't fear losing you, you've shown her you have no spine. You're a kingdom builder. She either helps fortify it or helps tear it down.
And the problem isn't weakness itself, but misinterpreting it.
That's their take. Modern men, they claim, have been trained to see weakness as compassion or tolerance. And that perceived weakness attracts chaos. It wasn't bad luck. You invited it because your weakness called to her chaos.
Harsh. You are where you deserve to be.
Extremely harsh, but that's their point. You got here through carelessness, desperation, boredom. Owning that selection is the only way to break the cycle.
Instead of waiting for a perfect woman, build yourself.
Yes, build your value, build your judgment, because feelings are liars. They claim women can master triggering those feelings, validation, comfort, intimacy, and men fall for it.
So the final law revisited. Judge with insight, not just eyes.
You have eyes, but do you have insight? Courage to see through the act, strength to walk away even when your body wants to stay. Choose based on wisdom, alignment, strategy, not hunger, addiction, lust.
Which brings us to that final commandment they mention. Testing loyalty in absence.
Crucial, they say. Test her when you're not there, before you fully trust her when you are there. Anyone can act right when watched.
The real test is unseen behavior.
Exactly. Does she keep your name clean? Reject other men's attention without needing to be policed? Live by standards without reward? Or does she gossip, drift, share private business when you're gone?
Untrusted when gone means.
Will betray you when you're weak. That's the claim. Don't apologize for high standards, they say. Don't apologize for walking away. You're building something. If she can't build with you, she'll tear you down. It's a law of nature in their view.
And the final analogy to Machiavelli's rulers, fortify your city.
Yes. The man is a kingdom. His time, energy, resources, purpose, that's his fortress. Guard the gates carefully. Control who gets access.
Then they talk about this final game, the illusion of options.
Right. Society sells this lie, they argue, that women are everywhere, interchangeable, so just keep swiping, keep lowering standards.
But Machiavelli warned about losing inheritance.
Yeah, they apply his insight that men forget losing their father faster than losing their inheritance. Their point. Nothing bankrupts a man mentally, spiritually, financially faster than chasing women who bring only debt to his life.
And this leads to a really strong claim about modern women.
Extremely strong. They state flatly that most women today are not worth selecting for serious partnership.
Why? What's the reasoning?
They point to things like women competing for likes over legacy, performing for strangers online instead of being a worthy partner.
And men settle out of fear.
Fear of being alone, fear of not standing on business, holding to their principles. They mention online trends, changing norms, and claim maybe less than 10% of women meet their criteria for marriageable material.
They also link criticism of figures like Kevin Samuels to this.
Yes, suggesting resistance to that kind of critical content shows an unwillingness to hear uncomfortable truths. They even contrast abortion autonomy for women with child support obligations for men, framing it as a societal imbalance disadvantaging men. Again, it's vital we state we're presenting their specific claims and viewpoints here.
Absolutely. And their final, ultimate conclusion.
Better alone than with the wrong woman, fundamentally. Her presence will strip your edge, your clarity, your purpose. Look at men who fell that way, they say, tired, drained, silent. That's the future if you trade principles for comfort.
So you need the strength to endure loneliness.
Yes. Suffer the loneliness of waiting for the right one rather than bowing to the convenience of the wrong one. Machiavelli taught sacrificing the easy path for the path of power.
The ends are legacy, peace, purpose. The means are
Ruthless, disciplined selection. Every woman either sharpens your sword or dulls your edge. No neutral ground. She multiplies your life or your misery, fuels your fire or drains it. A fortress or an enemy within.
And this isn't just theory, they say, it's history.
Yeah, kings and great men fallen by women they trusted. You'll try to explain away your bad choice, they warn, but you'll know you ignored the signs. No one saves a man from his own cowardice in selection.
Machiavelli wrote for winners, not people pleasers.
Exactly. To win, choose, test, be ready to walk away like a ruler, not a beggar. Your mission, your purpose, your time is too valuable.
How you act now defines your future.
Yes. Lower standards, ignore warnings, settle for entertainment over alignment. You're starting the timer on your own destruction.
It's a wake-up call, not comfort food.
Definitely not comfort. They argue comfort is what led men to tolerate the unacceptable, to become lesser versions of themselves.
And the very last law to remember.
You rise by being ruthless with your standards, not by being lucky. People will mock you, call you harsh, but, they conclude, a man alone with his peace and potential is richer than one surrounded by chaos disguised as love.
Wow, okay, that was definitely a deep dive.
Yeah.
Really specific and, yeah, intense perspective. Partner selection is high-stakes strategy, not just emotion.
Right. It's all about consequences, rigorous standards, observing character over appearance, building your own value, and crucially, that willingness to walk away.
We've really tried to just pull out and lay out the core arguments from within those two transcripts, sticking to their points, their Machiavellian framing, just presenting their viewpoint faithfully.
Exactly. So you can understand the logic they're presenting, whether you agree with it or not.
And it definitely forces you to think about conventional ideas differently, doesn't it? That tension between this strategic, almost cold approach and our usual ideas about connection, trust, vulnerability.
It absolutely does, which leaves a pretty big question hanging, I think.
Yeah.
Well, for you, the listener. Given the high stakes they describe, how do you actually balance that need for careful, maybe ruthless selection with the very real human need for connection, for trust, for opening up to someone? And what does building your own value really look like in practice when you're actually trying to find someone? Exactly. Something to chew on as you think about these ideas and how they might or might not apply to your own path.